Hey buddy, how's it going? Yeah, no, I'm good, I'm good. Hey, yes, no, that's what I'm calling you about. I did get your phone call from 6 weeks ago. I got the text messages as well. Yeah, man, I'm so sorry I've now replied to you. Just my anxiety was really bad, and that's why I didn't get back to you. And scene. Don't you wish you could just have that conversation on the phone? Now, it's really interesting because anxiety is overwhelming. It makes you do different things that you never thought you would do before. But there are certain aspects of anxiety that come off as you being rude, but in reality, it's just your anxiety. And in this video, I'm gonna cover some of the things that people with anxiety tend to do that come off as rude to others, our family members, our friends, our siblings. It's really important to understand before I jump into this list that although this comes off as a rude behavior, I don't want you to use this as a crutch, like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't do that, it's just my anxiety. I'm just opening up about this because I want to shed light on this particular matter. So give yourself a little bit of leeway. It's okay to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room because anxiety is powerful. It's overwhelming at times, it's isolating at times, and it does things to you in a physical form that even you don't understand. You don't even know how to explain it to others. So it's okay. Give yourself a little bit of space, but it is important to understand whether you have anxiety or someone in your life who has anxiety, that these are things that people with anxiety do that come off as rude, but in reality, it's just our anxiety. So let's jump into the list. The first one, ignoring or not responding to text messages or phone calls. It's so funny because on one side of the spectrum, people with anxiety are very keen to responding and being aware of other people's emotions, feelings. In fact, we are so in tune with how people respond to emotions, to actions, to words, to feelings, that we are very much in tune with other people's perception of who we are, but also what they need. And so most of the time we're very much on it. We're very much on how people feel. We're very much on checking in with people. But when anxiety gets really difficult for us, we tend to pull back and we tend to hide under a rock. Our friends, our relatives, siblings, family members, they try to reach out to us, but we continue to ignore their messages. Not because we don't want to talk to them, but because we just kind of want to figure out what the heck's going on with us. And it just seems like there's so much going on with us that we need to figure things out first before we can talk to anyone else. We're trying to put our own face mask on first before trying to talk to other people. And it may even be just very simple messages like, hey, how have you been? How's life? Or even simple things like, happy birthday, messages that you get like that, and you just don't respond for weeks on end. And it gets to a point then you're like, oh my God, it's been so long that responding at this point kind of seems silly. So anyone who's watching in my personal life, if I've done this to you, I am so sorry. I'm very apologetic for this. And it's really hard to explain why we do this. And we're not being lazy. We're not being difficult. We're not using this as an excuse, and we're not trying to be rude. It's just our anxiety. It's working through ways that even we can't explain. The second thing that people with anxiety do that come off as rude is we tend to zone out. Okay, we tend to zone out whether it's at work, whether it's at school, whether it's in the middle of a conversation. We might be talking to someone and they can clearly see that we are not listening to them. Or maybe we're not paying attention to what they're saying. They'll finish their thought and say, did you catch that? Or did you hear what I said? Or, hey, are you listening to me? And most of the time, unfortunately, we aren't. I'm sorry, I know, very apologetic. It's hard to explain, but again, anxiety is doing wonderful things in our mind, meaning we have these thoughts, these intrusive thoughts, these overpowering thoughts, this monkey brain, this lizard brain. We're jumping from one thought to another thought to another thought. And it can become very overwhelming. And when we're in the middle of a conversation, our thoughts seem to bounce around, we seem to jump around. For me personally, I'm a very creative person, which is linked to my anxiety. I've talked about this before. Creatives tend to be very anxious. It's just part of our brain. It's just how our brain functions. And so when I'm talking to someone, sometimes they'll say something and it'll ignite an idea in my mind. Like, hey, I want to talk about that on a video, or I want to draw something inspired by this, or I want to write about this, or something related to my creativity. And my mind starts wandering and my imagination starts kicking in. And it's like that movie Beautiful Mind, where I'm like already doing things in my brain while I'm in the middle of a conversation. And so I begin to drift off into my own little wonderful imaginative land. And I unfortunately leave the person I'm talking to in the middle of conversation. So again, people in my life that I do this with or I have done this with, I'm so sorry, I love you. But I will be honest, anxiety tends to help me multitask. So most of the time when I'm listening to you, I'm still doing other things, but I'm still listening to you. I'm still paying attention to you. It's bad because I know it's 50-50, but I'm here, I'm there. I'm trying to be in two different places at once, but it comes off as rude, but people with anxiety tend to zone off once in a while. The third thing that people with anxiety tend to do that comes off as rude is they tend to cancel plans. Now, before I say anything else, I want to say anxiety can be extremely overwhelming. And if you have it, you know what I'm talking about, to the point that the symptoms that have manifested themselves in physical form, so your thoughts, your intrusive thoughts, tend to manifest themselves into physical symptoms: aches, pain, fatigue, racing of the heart, all the ones we've covered and all the ones you're familiar with. They can get to a point where it's overwhelming to leave home. It's overwhelming to get out of the house. And because of that, you want to cancel plans. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say this. I know it's going to come off as rude again, but sometimes I get excited. Sometimes I get really excited when plans get canceled. I know that sounds terrible, but it's my anxiety. It's your anxiety, it's our anxiety. We are human after all. We're not trying to be rude, we're just people, right? So canceling plans is something that people with anxiety do, which is, again, interesting because anxiety-driven folks are sometimes very extroverted, like I am. And depending on what day of the week it is, I'm very extroverted. So I love plans, I love social gatherings, I love going to see people, I love getting out of the house. But when anxiety is really bad and I'm having a really bad, anxious day, it just feels good to have plans cancel or, pull back a little bit. And sometimes you just need to cancel plans and say, hey, I'm having a really bad day. I'm having a tough day. I just need to find my rhythm and groove again. I'm not going to be fun to be around. So the physical symptoms can be so overwhelming that you just have to cancel or postpone the plans. It may come off as rude, but it's just our anxiety. And one more time, don't use this as a crutch or as an excuse that, hey, I have anxiety so I can do these things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to explain to those who don't really understand anxiety, or even those who just recently started experiencing anxiety and you're thinking, oh my gosh, why did I start doing these things that I never did before? It's okay. Give yourself some slack. Anxiety is a powerful being trying to navigate and guide you through life. And in that process, you're going to do some things differently that you didn't do before. It's okay. You will find your rhythm and groove in its own way. It's in its own time, all right? And the fourth thing that people with anxiety do that come off as rude is they may be a little snappy or irritable, okay? You may know someone in your life who is a very calm individual that happens to have anxiety that one day just is a little more irritable. They may just kind of snap at you for no reason, and it comes off as really rude. Now, again, I want you to know that anxiety comes in its own way, in its own shape for every single person. For me personally, on my really bad anxiety days, I tend to be more withdrawn because I'm sleep deprived. It really impacts my sleep. I either am not sleeping enough or I'm sleeping too much. And because of that, my whole system is off and I feel guilt, shame, mixed with that because I love being a morning person. I love getting up early. I love starting my day before anyone else in the house does. I love getting all my work done before anyone wakes up. I'm very proud of the fact that I get most of my work done before most people even think about going into their place of work, right? And so if I sleep too long or not sleep enough and I'm groggy, I tend to be a little bit more snappy. And again, I'm sorry for the people in my life that I've been this way. You know I'm very loving and caring and very chill and very calm, but anxiety again shows up in different ways. And if it is a day where you are feeling those physical symptoms and you just feel really foggy in the brain and you just feel really sluggish and fatigued, again, you just have to forgive us. We are human beings after all. And the beautiful thing about people with anxiety, because they're very loving and caring and emotional beings, at the end of the day, they're gonna apologize. They're going to ask for forgiveness, and they're going to say, I'm so sorry that I behaved this way. I hope you understand. And the people in our life really tend to understand that it's okay. We are going through a difficult phase in our life, and we will find our way in its own way, in its own time, right? But it comes off as rude. It comes off as mean, and, we are snappy sometimes, and it's anxiety. It tends to really push us in ways that we've never imagined before. Anxiety is a personal development journey. It is an incredible thing that you are going through. It is difficult, it's unnerving, it's scary, it's isolating at times, makes you feel like you're doubting everything in life, but it's okay. It's just anxiety, and it is a superpower. I've said it before, and it is my mantra, anxiety is your superpower. These are some of many things that people with anxiety do that come off as rude, but they're just symptoms and responses to anxiety. And I can just keep talking about this more and more and more. So I want to hear from you. Comment below. What are some things that you do in your life if you have anxiety that come off as rude to your family members or your friends? And if you are someone who doesn't have anxiety, but you have people in your life who do have anxiety, what are things that they do? I would love to hear from you because this conversation is really important to me because it really helps us understand our own psyche and our own emotions in a way that is going to help us navigate forward in life. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes responding to text messages and phone calls that I have been ignoring. I love you, friends and family. I'm sorry, but I'm going to call you right now, all right? Have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. अस्सलाम वालेकुम अबू. हाँ जी, सब खैरियत? नहीं सब ठीक ठाक. हाँ जी, माफ़ी मांगना है कि हाँ जी हो गए कुछ दिन थोड़ा गल नहीं हुई. नहीं आप बस मसरूफ़ हाँ बिजनेस लाल सब नहीं सब खैरियत बाकी सब ये सारे ठीक ठाक हैं.